She says, oh no, don't get up for me. No, girl. You are adorable under there. She says, thank goodness all those boxes are out from underneath there now because I can use it for its intended purposes. A little nest. A good nest? Oh, my sweet old girl. All right. Not sure if you guys can hear that wind. You probably can, but it was just 2 days ago that I shot the video on the feed and feeding methods for chickens. And, you know, pretty much everything was melted. And then overnight, of course, we got tons of snow, crazy wind all night long. It's still going. It's almost noon and it's supposed to stop or die down around noon. So we shall see. But winter wonderland has returned. Okay, so you're at a point where you're going, hey, thanks, Crystal, for all of that really good information on the coop and the run and the stuff that I'm going to need in my coop, and thanks for showing me the feed. I'm going to go out and get some of those baby chicks right now. But wait, what do you do with the baby chicks? How many do you get? Where do you get them from? What type of needs do they have that are different from adult chickens? We're going to go over that in today's video. This is the brooder box that my husband built. So the first thing you're going to need before you run to the store, you're going to have a spot to put them in. This is what we went with, and it's been wonderful. We've made a few modifications to it. You know, this is kind of what you might want to start with, something like this. There are many, many different styles of these. So I would first say if you've got a dad, a grandpa, a husband, or maybe it's just you, no problem. If you're handy, this is a relatively easy thing to build. If you think about it, it's just 4 walls, a floor, and then obviously a way to connect. And then everything else is just adding in some things as needed, which we'll talk about, and then having some kind of screened lid as well. If you don't have those options, you're not handy, someone else you know is not handy to build this kind of thing, you can buy it as from a farm store on occasion, but more so online. So again, look at Facebook Marketplace. So sometimes people are selling these that they have made or that someone else has made for them. The other thing you can do is a large plastic storage tote. There are some things with that though too. You can't put the lid on that. You need some kind of something to go over the top of it. So if you have, you know, clear mesh wire, or maybe you can finagle your cooking racks from the kitchen that you use to cool cookies. Put a couple of those together and put that over that, because they will get to a point where they jump and hop and they try to get out of here. And you don't want escapees running around your house or your basement or getting lost or, you know, being a snack for your dogs or whatever other pets you have, because that's something you got to think about too. But anyway, that's the type of box or how you want to start. This one, the measurements on this one, 57 inches long, 28 3/4 inches wide, and then 18 inches tall, or, I mean, that's not normally how we say deep, but 18 inches, you know, from the bottom to the top of the side here. And we fit to about 10 chicks in here at a time. You can fit more, certainly, but if you do that, you're going to need to put them outside in the coop sooner. So that's another thing. Chicks should stay in a brooder for about 4 weeks. When you get them at the store, which we'll talk more about in a little bit here, they're anywhere from 1 to 2 days old, maybe 3 days, or, you know, they get them almost daily in the spring. So a store will receive them almost daily from hatcheries in the spring. So whenever you go shopping, they're literally just a few days old. So you kind of count from the time that you get them home, okay? That's not a big deal to do that, and just assume that that's day 1 for them. And count about 4 weeks. Now, we've kept ours in here for 5 weeks, 6 weeks. They're getting pretty big, restless, and rambunctious by then. But there were a few different reasons both times we've done that. The first year it was that my husband was still building the coop. So you can do that in conjunction with raising your chicks, but you need to make sure that your coop is ready by the time the chicks are that age, because they need to go somewhere else. They can't just hang out in here forever because you're not ready with your coop. And then last year, what was it? There was something, I think, going on with our existing flock, and there was a really bad storm. The the whole week that we were trying to put them out, there were lots of thunderstorms, and it just wasn't great conditions that we felt comfortable putting them outside, I think. But anyway, about 4 weeks is about how long you're going to keep them in here, and then they need to transition to the coop. So let's get back to talking about the features of the Brooder box. Feed and water system. The first year we did this, we had these small feeder waters, which, by the way, they sell them like this at the store for this purpose. It's basically a mini version of what I have out in the coop, right? So we started out with them on the floor, which we'll also talk about in a minute. They were in the wood chips on the floor. Our first run of chicks, that wasn't terrible. The older they got, of course, they're stepping in it, pooping in it, getting dust and wood chips in it. So, that's not ideal. So this time around, my husband added these hangers, basically, and just put little hooks, those little screw-in hooks in there, and then we can hang them now. So that helps. But when they're a couple days old, you need to set them on the floor, right? You guys know how tiny baby chicks are. They fit in the palm of your hand. So they're not going to be able to reach that if you're hanging it up at first. But this is a fantastic option for when they are 3 weeks old, maybe 2, depending on how big they are at that age. But you'll know if they can reach that or not. And then get it up off the floor so that they're not, number one, spilling water all over your brooder box. Not ideal for a lot of reasons, but you don't want it to rot the wood of the floor of your brooder box. You don't want them getting wet. You also just don't want them losing all of their water, and then you go down like, oh shoot, I gave them water this morning and now it's 5 p.m. and I'm checking on them again and they have no. This is a mirror. So I've talked a little bit about chicken toys before in videos. It's got a little bell on the end of it. It also has one of those tiny screw-in hooks that is stuck to the screw that we put into the side of the brooder box here. It just fell off. We just need to fix that before we do this again in the spring. But that's a great toy for them, something to entertain them while they're in this small, relatively boring space. Just think of it like a baby toy, toddler toy. It's kind of the same idea. And then over here, my husband had the good idea of, he made them a mini roosting bar, kind of to help show them, train them where to sleep when they start doing that. And we have found they seemed like they were looking for something like that, and they would pile up in a corner, which they're going to do for warmth initially anyway. But the bigger they get in that 4-week time frame, they're going to annoy each other, and you'll find that they're trying to climb on things, and if there's nothing in here for them to climb on, it's just, not as great for them. We also had like a little log from our woods, just something small in here, something for them to peck at and play with, essentially. Now the floor, we had laminate down in here before and it worked great. You can tell it protected the wood in here, protected this floor. It did get wet, and we found that because it wasn't fully sealed or, patted down and sticky, the sticky side on the bottom of it, obviously, it wasn't pushed all the way down. So they were pecking at it, pulling it up. Then wood chips got underneath it in the corners, and that's why we had to rip it out, and there's still just some remnants in here. So that's a maintenance thing that we'll do on this box again before we put chicks in here next year. But that is really key. So put some kind of laminate down that's going to protect your floor from that whole poop and spilled water situation. It'll work wonders. And then the next thing you want to do for chicks, so we've talked about different bedding in the chicken coop. We've done a video on that. For the brooder box, wood shavings rather, you'll find them at the farm stores. That is really the best thing for a brooder box. Straw is not exactly ideal. I guess you could probably use hemp bedding. You might want to watch other videos and see what other people have done, but mostly the wood shavings are the way to go in here. It works for their size, their stage of life. Really easy. That's pretty much it for the inside of the box. Now the top. So my husband this was an add-on. He ended up needing to build this and put it on because we realized that first season, and we had a different very temporary thing on here the first season, and it was something we added when they were like 2.5 weeks old, because we're like, oh, they literally jump straight up in the air and they can get themselves in and out of places that way. we had some of this hardware cloth left over from something else, and he put something else really quick together before that just sat on the top here. So this time he actually built a lid, added it in. But a couple things, we needed an open space for this. This is very light too, and it doesn't, it doesn't need to lock or anything like that. But we needed an open space for the heat lamp to kind of go down in there, which we'll talk about in a minute. So he left this as an open space for that. It worked pretty well, but again, if you're getting past that 4-week mark, they're gonna get out anyway. They're gonna try, if you have any kind of opening like this, they're gonna get out, they're gonna find a way. Initially the heat lamp was down in there, so it kind of impeded their ability to jump out, in the corners around the heat lamp. But once they got older, they just kind of didn't care, and they would burn their feathers, and we'd go down in our basement where we were keeping them and smell burnt feathers, and you're like, what's going on? What's happening? And then there'd be 1 or 2 chickens running around the basement, and you're like, okay, our basement's unfinished right now, and it's kind of the perfect space for this to go. Now that's another thing you want to consider, is where are you going to put these chicks when you get them. Again, they're dusty, they can be kind of noisy, so they're dusty even when they're small. And if you have pets in the house, like we do have a dog, we trained her, she's pretty trainable. She wanted to bite them at first and treat them like a little chicken nugget snack, as we joked. But not all dogs are that trainable, everybody knows that. You might have cats that are not going to like these animals too. So if you're trying to keep these in the main living space where you're at, I mean, we wouldn't, and we haven't yet, and we don't need to, thank goodness. We have enough space that we can put them near us where we can check on them often, but they're not in our living space. Right, so now the heat lamp. So it's interesting, right? You'll hear a lot of chicken keepers, and you've heard me say in other videos that we no longer use heat lamps in the coop for the most part. You can, some people definitely still do, but that's not the most popular main thing to do anymore for heat because it's dangerous. These are very hot. If you touch it, you're gonna burn your skin. If dust, feathers, if there's too much dust and feathers up around it, or the wood chips in the bottom, if something like that that's flammable touches it, it could ignite, right, and cause a fire, which is why we don't keep them out in the coop where there's a lot more of that stuff and they're unattended a whole lot more, and there's a lot more opportunity for it to get knocked down into the bedding on the floor of your coop. Dust and feathers flying up in the air, I don't want you to worry about that. That's not as big of a deal. It's just if you're not cleaning that off and it's in your coop and it, cakes up over time, that could be an issue. It's more so out in the coop, these fall off of whatever someone has them hanging on, and then they, catch fire in the coop. But anyway, here in the brooder box, you do need this. You need some kind of heat source. There are other ones that you can buy. This is the cheapest and easiest thing to buy still. But you can buy one of those heated panels that looks like a flat screen, like a tiny flat screen computer monitor or TV. There's some that are kind of on a stand, and then they have some room underneath the stand, and then the chicks can go underneath it and kind of hide under there. But they will need a heat source. Think of, any baby animal. They have different needs than a grown animal. So this is kind of one of those things. A chicken's internal body temperature as an adult is anywhere from 104 to 107 degrees, so they can handle a lot of things and they put out a lot of heat in their small bodies. But the baby chicks are not there yet, right? They don't have that going on. So you do need to provide them with a heat supply, at least for the first couple of weeks. And then you also want to wean them off of it. So like maybe week 3 and 4, you turn it on for the night, but you leave it off during the day. And then you do less and less of that over time, something like that. So that's kind of how to use the heat lamp and why you need it. They need to be kept warm. Now, how we did ours, my husband added this, just try to see it. I forget what that's called, but you know what it is. It's like a metal cord. He added that, and we actually had this just hanging to a beam in our basement. And then we could adjust it too, right? As we were weaning them off, we would have it sitting up higher, but when they're little, it needs to be down in a little bit more. And you'll kind of determine that. The first year we had chicks, we checked on them frequently, just like when you're a new parent, right? You're checking on that baby all the time. So we checked on them frequently to see, like, does this need to be raised or lowered? Are they warm enough? We want them warm, but we don't want them super hot either. Like, what's the best? So just down in a little bit is what we found works the best. And then as you're weaning them off, raise it more, leave it in a raised spot, and then turn it off more often too. And of course, this one comes with the black cord to plug it in. You've got the lamp. They do still come with yellow lights, but we heard that red lights were better, and I mean, it's certainly been good for us. No problems there with that. All right, to wrap up, I just kind of wanted to show you guys the chickens again today. Hi! Everybody doing pretty good in this crazy weather? It's much better inside here. I kind of wanted to show you guys, so again, I'm really glad we put the sand in, but you see where it's a little bit darker there? That's where it's at ground level and where a lot of the water comes into the run. And back there, and then it even got, I used my foot to scoop some dry sand over that low-lying area there where the food is, but it was pretty damp too. So I'm really glad we put sand in here because this is much better than when it was just dirt. That was very muddy, and then it's going to be frozen mud if you have a situation like we did. So yesterday and the day before, it was, above 35 for those 2 days and constant rain. So our ground is saturated, water everywhere. And then yesterday in the evening, 9 p.m., 9 p.m., it was still 54 degrees and raining. And then the temperature very quickly dropped and the precipitation continued, but then it comes in the form of snow. Can you hear that? That's wind out there. You guys be very glad you're in here. Anyway, so it's like 22, 21 degrees right now and snowing instead of rain. So anyway, just wanted to kind of show you the difference a day can make, literally. And then I also wanted to show, I've talked before about the pumpkins. This one was a really tough pumpkin to cut. So I just did the two halves, but they'll pick out the guts and the seeds. And when I come out tomorrow to throw these in the woods next to the coop here, those will be completely cleaned out. But normally I cut them into quarters. So there would be like 4 pieces, just so it's, oh, there we go. Somebody's on the swing. Hi, girl. We finally got to show people how the swing works. It's the most adorable thing. Anyway, I cut them open a little more, but because there's so many, we now have 16 hens and the 1 rooster. So just to having 4 halves helps spreads it out so that they can, in their little cliques, they can eat together, or not everybody's trying to peck at the same 1 or 2 pieces of chicken. Oh, and then here's the, I did fermented feed from when I did that video a couple of days ago to today. So this is kind of the slop that it turns into and the extra food source that I have out here for them, besides their dry food. So lastly, I'm going to attach our previous videos that we shot just for fun and just more for our own sake of us raising the chicks that we purchased in the last 2 seasons, so that you guys can see kind of what that looks like when there's actually chicks in the brooder, and how much fun that is for little kids, by the way. It's a lot of fun. And then also, once again, in order to help out and help our channel grow, you can like, subscribe, and look in the description of this video for my Buy Me a Coffee link. That's another way that you can help support if you'd like. All right, enjoy the rest of the